Okay, welcome to GC EdXL Buddhism Paper 4. This is the last of our introductions to the early life or of the acts of the Buddha. So, his life as an ascetic or his renunciation. Renunciation means giving up family life in order to search for a spiritual truth. That was common in India. Many people had abandoned the Brahmin way with having being at the householder stage, and so on. Siddhartha's renunciation was precisely the event that his father, Suddhodana, didn't want and had been trying to avoid. He had responsibilities to his family and to his tribe. However, Siddhartha was intent in finding an answer to the question of why we suffer and how we can transcend or overcome it. He left his wife and his newborn son. He gave up his fabulous life of hedonism at the palace, shaved his head, gave his horse to Channa, his charioteer and servant, and he went on his quest to become a holy man. He spent many years wandering, being a good student to teachers and trying to find the reason to the sadness and suffering in the world. His first teacher taught him a meditation technique which included a profound state of trance, which he would use later. Uh, Siddhartha went forth then, and he continued and embarked on this Hindu path to liberation. And the idea is not being distracted by the world and by desires, and to direct the soul towards liberation, to release the soul to moksha. Siddhartha had tried then a number of other teachers, a group of 5 ascetics. Now, who are ascetics? These are guys who suppress the bodily needs and desires in order to liberate the soul. And he tried just this. His method was fasting. He limited his intake of food to very little, and he became thin so that he could touch his own spine by pressing on his stomach. Eventually, he realized he would kill himself if he persisted, and that he was no less despairing than when he started. His life of hedonism he would despaired at, and now his life of asceticism he despaired at. He bathed, he ate some gruel, and at this his 5 companions, who were bitterly disappointed in him, left in disgust. However, Siddhartha was not put off. He was still intent on his quest. He declared that the truth had not been found through a life of extremes, either through luxury or renunciation. The best way was the middle way. Therefore, Siddhartha abandoned the strict lifestyle of self-denial and asceticism, but he did not return to the pampered luxury of his early life. Instead, he pursued the middle way, which is just what it sounds like, neither luxury nor poverty. Dominic Side notes that he was 29 when he left the palace, and tradition has it that he left in secret in the night to avoid his family's pleas for him to stay. He spent the following 6 years as an ascetic, and he followed a number of teachers in the forest. He learned yoga and meditation. You can trace these activities all the way back to the Indus Valley Society. In addition, he practiced the mortification of the body. Great word. He fasted, held his breath, perhaps, for periods of time until his head seemed like he would burst. He stayed out in the burning sun in summer and bathed in icy water in winter. He would stand on one leg for long periods or would squat for days without sitting down. Long afterwards, the Buddha would tell his disciples that he learned a great deal from this experience. In particular, he developed his discipline and his willpower. However, in the end, he did not find the answers he was looking for, and his mind grew weak from lack of food. It was a girl named Sujata who found him in the forest, took pity on him, and she offered him a bowl of milk, rice, which immediately restored his strength. And after this, Siddhartha abandoned asceticism, remembering in his childhood experience under the rose apple tree, and realized that only meditation could lead him to enlightenment. The episode of the Buddha's life is taken to mean that extreme attitudes are unhelpful, even if the goal is freedom, truth, and happiness. Trying too hard to achieve it can be counterproductive. Extremes of puritanism or austerity do not bring the goal closer, neither do the other extremes of indulgence and hedonism. At this point in his life, Siddhartha discovered a balanced approach is best. Denise Kush brings us back to the Pali Canon, and quotes this: "The unborn, unaging, unailing, deathless, sorrowless, undefiled, supreme Xerxes of bondage Nibia." This is Nikita 26. And that while still young, a black-haired boy blessed with youth, in the first phase of life, I shaved off my hair and beard, though my mother and father wished otherwise, and grieved with tearful faces. I put on the yellow robe and went forth from the house life into homelessness. Majimana Nikita 36. The later legends make the story of the great renunciation even more dramatic. The prince became thoroughly disgusted with his life of pleasure, and his beautiful dancing girls looked ugly to him asleep after a party. The great renunciation took place on the same night as Yasadora bore him a son, Rahula. It said that the Bodavista left home secretly in the middle of the night, crept into his wife's bedroom to glimpse his newborn son. However, he deliberately avoided waking his wife or looking at the baby's face, in case it weakened his resolve. This is symbolic of the complete detachment necessary for enlightenment. The Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism left home and became a wandering, possessionless ascetic, like many others at the time. And the teachers he joined were claiming to offer answers to life's questions with practical methods for achieving peace of mind and salvation. Common practices were extreme asceticism, self-torture, various meditation or yogic techniques. One common theory was that such practice would set one's eternal soul free from the confines of a material body into eternal peace. The canon records the names of 2 teachers from the Bodhisattva learned techniques of meditation. Alara Kalama and Uldaka Ramputa, from these teachers, the Bodhisattva learned how to achieve advanced levels of meditative states, known in Buddhism as the mental state of nothingness, or of neither perception nor non-perception. However, the Bodhisattva had not yet found the complete release he was looking for, and moved on from these teachers. It's possible with these teachers he first discussed the ideas of rebirth, karma, and release, as we know from Hindu and Jain sources that such ideas were current among ascetics at the time. He decided to attempt extreme asceticism, Kush comments, as a method of completely destroying attachment to transient existence and breaking through it into eternal peace. Many of the ascetic groups believed that the harsh treatment of the body would lead to liberation of the soul. For example, the Jains. Some of these ascetic practices were developed, followed by holy men of India even today. According to the Pali Canon, the Bodhisattva spent 6 years as an ascetic following the practices that sound quite horrific. He either went out without clothes or rough clothes made of materials like horsehair. He either went without washing for long periods or tried constant bathing. He spent long periods in one position without moving, standing or squatting, holding one arm above the head. He pulled out his hair and beard. He deliberately lived in places like wild animal-infested forests or cremation grounds, laid on beds of thorns to sleep, sought out the hot sun or cold snow, lived in times of total solitude, tried to stop or slow his breathing, fasted, ate excrement, lovely, finally stopped eating altogether. Such practices are bound to teach you something about yourself and have some effect on the mind. Possibly some practitioners did have hallucinations brought on by the deprivations and felt that they had reached divine realms. Maybe. Gautama himself found that he'd learnt great self-control, how to conquer fear, desire, disgust, and have much greater control over the mind. However, none of these practices really got him anywhere, Kush suggests. However, not so when he just about exhausted in his final fast, he decided to give up these austerities and accepted a meal of milk rice by a girl. His ascetic companions left in disgust. His 6 years of trying to limit what was perhaps an important psychological preparation for his enlightenment experience, which follows soon after his decision. The Bodhisattva's rejection of the extreme ascetic process is highly significant for Buddhism, which advises the middle way between self-indulgence and self-torture. Buddhists believe in strict self-control, but not pointless suffering, helping others rather than total solitude, working to improve the world as well as yourself. It's probably influenced by the Buddhist rejection of the separate inner soul substance, untouched by what happens to the body. As the Bodhisattva found by experience that the physical sufferings do affect the mental or psychological parts of the person, human being is not a soul imprisoned in the body, but a psychological unity. Hence, perhaps, you might say, metta and compassion. Just reflective thinking. Do you think it's possible to be rich and religious at the same time? So do you think it's impossible that people who have a life of luxury can really achieve spiritual ends? Or is asceticism always bad? Is fasting always bad? What could we learn something from it? The Buddha seems to. Have a think about that. That's all for now.